I was wrong. I was wrong about this episode. I was 100% wrong about this episode. This episode was a perfect adaptation. I take back what I said in the last live stream. After rereading the entire two chapters that this adapted, taking notes on it, going through all the emotions the Norn feels and how that's displayed in the episode, and after rewatching the episode, it misses a few points, but it's nothing insanely terrible. It's a great episode. I don't think every single major point that this episode needed to cover, it covered pretty well. For some reason, in my first initial impressions, I thought that it didn't really express her relationship with Rudius all that well. I thought it was really unclear, and just her her being scared of Rudius didn't really show in the episode. I thought that was the case. I thought they kind of just glossed over that, like mentioned it once, but it wasn't really like taken fully into effect. But after watching this, after going through here, let me show you. After going through here, and especially after the scene with Paul, it really goes to show how relatable those two are, how similar they are with their insecurities and with how they feel about each other, about being scared of being rejected, being scared of being tossed aside, being left alone, and how she's going through a hard time just like Rudius is. And she didn't quite understand that it might not have been as like a physical burden as Paul had in the beginning of this entire arc, this entire story of this episode. It was more of a mental game that Rudius had to go through, and it's very similar to what Norn's going through right now, being scared of being rejected, being scared of being held up to a certain standard that many other people don't seem to understand how you take in all this information, how you take in everyone's expectations of you. Rudius, when he met Paul again in the first season, after that entire turning point one, he was expected by Paul to immediately try to make amends for and try to get as help out as much as possible from the disaster, from the teleportation disaster. And putting that expectation on him was unfounded. It was ridiculous, and people putting that same expectation on Norn is ridiculous. And I feel like the anime was actually able to illustrate that pretty well. Same goes for the light novel. There are a few points that were missed. Sure, her relationship with Aisha was kind of, actually, yeah, I wouldn't say kind of. It was entirely skipped for this episode. Her having this imposter syndrome when being compared to Aisha, that was skipped, but I don't think it was entirely necessary. Her being afraid of Rudius kicking her out and potentially going violent on her just for not being wanted, like that is insanely powerful, and I thought it was really good to open up here. And for some reason I overlooked it. I don't know why. I don't know why upon my initial viewing I overlooked almost the entire mood of this second half. It took me a rewatch and rereading the chapter to understand, like, no, it captured these emotions perfectly. And now it's not like 100% stated outright. I mean, I don't think an anime is ever going to do that. He couldn't approach me. He was too scared I might reject him. The instant that thought occurred to me, I felt all my negative emotions begin to melt away. That wasn't shown here. It was in the anime episode. It was more like that Rudius really couldn't really tried his best to get it and make amends for what was happening with Norn, but in the light novel, it was more like the relatability, the similarness of Norn and Rudius, of Rudius being unable to directly approach her, taking so long to talk to her, even after like getting into her room. That pause and being very visibly anxious about this entire situation. That's what the ability to the failure in directly approaching Norn. That's what establish that connection. And that wasn't really 100% well stated here, but like other than that, it was totally fine. I thought everything here was handled pretty damn well. And deciding to go for cut to a Rudyard scene after this entire like all these thoughts were established, I thought that was a good decision as well. Again, skipping Aisha's relationship with Norn, skipping how bratty Aisha can be when it comes to how Norn isn't up to her level of excellence. That's a bit that's something to be added, but I don't think it was, again, I don't think it was entirely necessary for the point, the purpose that this chapter conveys. Now, I feel like her being afraid of Rudius wasn't too well illustrated. That's another point that I have to make here. It wasn't too well illustrated here. It was more to the point of her being her. It was more to the point of Rudius hitting Paul and being very aggressive with Paul. That at first like made her hate Rudius because of all the hard work that Paul did and whatever. But then the contrast of everyone praising Rudius, when it comes Lilia praising Rudius, Paul praising Rudius, even Rudyard praising Rudius, that's what triggered her to hate Rudius. That's what triggered her is like, what do I not understand about this whole thing? This is ridiculous. He's he's evil. Why the hell is he winning everybody over? And why the hell am I still being compared to him for no reason? I my classmates, my teachers, and even Marisa, the roommate, told me I should try to follow in his footsteps. They wanted me to be like him, to be like the brother I feared and hated, and I didn't understand at all. I didn't want to be like him, but more than anything, it hurt to know that I couldn't compare to him. That is why. That is why she hated this whole relationship. Like it wasn't really directly hating him. It was hating his effect on her, and I don't think that was really conveyed too well, but the emotions definitely got through. Again, maybe it's just me after reading the chapter and then watching this and accompanying the two. Maybe that's what really helped this carry this whole emotional package that the anime conveys. But definitely 100% after reading the chapter, after watching this, there were no big points that this anime episode really dismissed. There were no points that this episode there's no like added on stuff here. There was no unnecessary BS that this anime episode tried to go through when it comes to this Norn adaptation. Everything was necessary. All the emotions that were conveyed were accurate and were the main points that she was trying to go through. And I thought it was done excellently after a second watch. So when to take everything into account here, I like to yap a lot. And my initial impressions of an episode may not be entirely accurate. So opinions change. Opinions change. I definitely like this episode a lot. Is it the best episode? No. It's not the best episode. Best episode of the core, you can put that up for debate. I still like the previous episode a little bit more. A little bit more even after this rewatch. But still, I'm going to bump my score from an 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. It was very good. There were a few points that were missing to me. Is it the perfect adaptation? Well, it didn't hit everything, but for the emotions it conveyed, it was very good. It was very good. And when you accompany reading the chapters along with the anime episode, it was very good, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, with all that said, like, subscribe, do whatever that stuff is. You can watch my initial impressions of the episode. It's one of my live streams. The VOD is uploaded out there. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. okay, maybe you shouldn't watch the VOD because apparently my take was awful, and this guy apparently seems to think so. I mean, I just finished making the video, and now I'm looking at these comments. So maybe don't watch the VOD if you don't want to cringe too hard. Okay, there you go. There's my warning. All right.